and a 3-judge panel heard argument as to whether Donald Trump has the power under a 1977 emergency economic, and of course the answer is there isn't any. And now they focused on emergency. How is this an emergency? You want to do that? We're getting screwed with by OPEC about oil. It's causing a recession. We have to fire back. You can use a fill in the blank sanction. One went up to the Court of International Trade, a little understood, little known specialty court, sits in New York.
Trump called it a national emergency. The courts just called it something else entirely. Today, an appeals court delivered a brutal legal slap to his trademark tariffs, questioning if he even had the authority to make them in the first place. And here's the kicker. If the decision sticks, it could mean billions, yes, billions, flowing back to businesses and maybe even trickling to your wallet. But how does a courtroom fight over dusty 1970s power suddenly turn into a potential refund jackpot? Stick around. We're unpacking the law, the money, and the political bruising it's leaving behind. Before we move on, I will like you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Trump swore up and down that it was a crisis to save America. Factories closing, jobs fleeing, the flag in danger. Big dramatic speeches. But when this emergency limped into court, the judges basically looked at him like a kid saying his dog ate his homework. One even hinted that this was more like an improv act than an actual national threat. And when you're the president trying to use emergency powers, that's not the reaction you want from people in black robes. Here's what actually happened. Back in office, Trump reached for a law from the 1970s that was supposed to be used for serious emergencies, wars, disasters, things that make the news ticker flash red, not for I'm mad at another country's trade policy.
11 judges, and none of them appointed by Donald Trump. I'm going to report on it right here. We had an oral argument for 2 hours today in D.C. on 2 cases related to the attack on Donald Trump's tariffs. In fact, as one judge, Judge Reyna, Jimmy Reyna today, pointed out among the 11 judges during oral argument, show me where in the entirety of the IEEPA statute there's a mention of the word tariff being a power of a president. Impose tariffs. Couple little problems pointed out today in the 11 judge panel.
Using that dusty law and another one from 1974, he slapped tariffs on imports from China, claiming the threat to America was so big he could skip Congress entirely. It was like borrowing a fire truck because your neighbor's music was too loud. The Court of International Trade didn't buy the drama. They brushed off the national emergency label as a political move dressed up with legal paperwork, and that set the stage for the appeals court to step in. Now, the thing about these laws, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act and the Trade Act of 1974, is that they talk a lot about regulating trade, managing imports and exports, and restricting certain types of goods. But here's the fun bit. They don't actually say the word tariffs. So right away, the judges had a big question. Where exactly in this law does it say a president can create a whole new tax on goods? Trump, of course, treated these powers like one of those coupon books your grandma buys for charity. A little emergency here, a discount for policy goals there.
And I can tell you with reasonable certainty, although if I'm wrong, I'll come back and tell you, that he's not going to win. Well, don't worry about Donald Trump's tariffs much longer, because an 11-judge panel today of the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals, I believe, is about to strike them down. Just toss it and give it over to the president. Under an emergency, you'd think they'd express that clearly. Statute, we call it the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, also called IEEPA, whether he had the power under IEEPA to do something that the Constitution says is reserved for Congress.
The problem is, coupon books don't land you in front of judges who are now asking, Mr. Government Lawyer, can you even point to the section that lets you do this? And from the way the hearing went, that section seems as real as a unicorn at Mar-a-Lago. The panel itself did not scream friendly audience. 8 judges appointed by Democrats, 3 by Republicans. For Donnie Diapers, that's basically going to Thanksgiving dinner, where half the table still remembers every dumb thing you did as a kid. Within minutes, the government's lawyer was dodging pointed questions about where the legal authority begins and ends. Some members of the panel seemed ready to say the law was stretched further than Trump's neckties. And here's why that matters. This courtroom standoff isn't just about tariff policy with China. It's about whether any president can wake up one morning, call something an emergency, and suddenly make you pay more for your TV, your sneakers, or your microwave. Congress is supposed to handle taxes. If a president can just invent one, that's not policy. it's freelancing with the national wallet. So while Grumpy Trumpy thought he was just being tough on trade, the bigger picture is way messier. Constitutional limits, separation of powers, the whole laws mean something thing. It's all on the table. The mini payoff today, we're watching a modern presidency collide headfirst with the deep, boring, but very real rules of the Constitution. Imagine your least favorite politician's buddy cashing in whether Trump came out on top or got slapped down in court. That's pretty much the mood in the strange little world of tariff refunds. If the appeals court's ruling actually holds, every business that paid those Trump-era tariffs could try to get that money back. And we're not talking petty change here. We're talking billions, enough to make even the most America First guys suddenly start waving the flag for refund checks. But here's the thing, this isn't about a government mailing out big fat envelopes labeled "sorry about that." Getting a tariff refund is like running a paperwork marathon with a backpack full of bricks. You've got to file claims with customs, provide proof of every single shipment, fight through audits, and pray the agency on the other end processes anything before the ice caps melt. Some cases drag on for years, stuck between lawyers, bureaucrats, and the occasional missing form someone swears they never received. Picture the scene if the ruling does stick. Importers, retailers, manufacturers, all queuing up like it's a Black Friday doorbuster sale, but for reclaiming money they'd already sent to Uncle Sam. Imagine the crowd at a mall opening, but instead of fighting over flat screen TVs, it's trade lawyers in wrinkled suits fighting over tariff codes. Every major player in international shipping will be running the numbers, hunting for eligible transactions, and law firms will suddenly have tariff refund specialist signs taped to their front doors. And then there's Howard Lutnick. Now, this is where the ethical smell starts to stink. Lutnick, the allegedly soon-to-be Commerce Secretary in this little hypothetical, has a family business that reportedly scoops up refund claims from companies desperate for quick cash. They buy the right to those refunds at a steep discount, then sit back and collect the full payout later. So if these tariffs vanish in a puff of legal smoke, he and his inner circle could be sitting on a gold mine. America first, savings account second. Here's how that claim buying works in plain English. A small company might be owed a $500,000 refund, but can't afford to wait 3 years for customs to pay out. So they sell the claim to a bigger player for say $300,000 right now. The buyer takes on the risk and the weight, hoping to pocket that $200,000 difference when the government finally writes the check. Now imagine if the guy in charge of overseeing the very policies that determine these payouts is somehow connected to the people buying up the claims. It's legal gymnastics, but it's also the kind of thing that makes people throw their remote at the TV. Beyond the backroom dealing vibe, there's the bigger ripple most people don't think about. If these tariffs disappear, the prices of electronics, cameras, appliances, stuff almost everyone buys, could shift again. Retailers who had been hiking prices to cover those import taxes might lower them to compete, or they might just pocket the difference and call it a day. Whichever way it goes, the removal of a tax that's woven into global supply chains is going to shake the shelves. So now you've got a federal court possibly wiping out a presidential signature policy, businesses scrambling for billions, political insiders circling like sharks, and the average person maybe noticing their next TV is a bit cheaper. It's not just about tariff law anymore. This is about who actually gets to control the massive flow of money in and out of America's economy, and whether the guy in the Oval Office gets to treat that power like it's his personal debit card. This isn't just a grumpy, Trumpy bad day in court. It's a moment that could redraw the map on presidential power over your wallet. For decades, emergency powers have been a magic key to skip Congress. If the court slammed that door, the next president, any president, may have to actually ask before taxing you. If that happens, Congress might finally take back the keys it's been leaving under the mat. Keep watching this case. The final ruling could mean corporations cash huge checks. Your prices change overnight, and Washington has to follow the same rules it brags about writing in the first place.